Good evening, everyone. It looks like people are still connecting to audio, so I'm going to wait another minute and see that they connect, and then we'll get started so they don't think they're missing much. And it looks like now everyone is connected to audio. Great. So good evening, good afternoon. I'm Jordan Sheff. I'm the Commissioner at the Department of Developmental Services. Thanks for joining us tonight, taking time out of your busy lives to spend a few minutes with us. We have a little bit smaller crowd than we anticipated, but maybe some more people will pop in and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to get to the discussion, questions and answers. I'm hoping that people who are attending this evening have taken the time to watch the videos that were sent along in the registration form or at the registration sign up. But we can also ensure if you haven't seen the videos, you get them after. And we'll post links for all that. That's all up on the website. This is a follow-up from last year's visits like this, and we're going to get into the meat of that. But since I last had a chance to visit with you, there are a variety of transitions that have taken place. And in a little bit, she'll have an opportunity to introduce herself, but my new Deputy Commissioner, Elisa Velardo, is going to bring us up to speed both on some American Rescue Plan Act activities as well as employment work going on around the state. But in each of these meetings, I've had the privilege to introduce our new team of regional directors. And as we're in the North region tonight, I would like to introduce Miss Stacy Silva Gordon and give her a minute to introduce herself. And if she'd like to give some shout outs to her staff and attending tonight, that'd be great too. Stacy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Stacy Silva Gordon. I am the regional director since April 1st of 2022. I have several years of experience in the private sector in direct care and management before starting my career here at DDS. In DDS, I also had the opportunity to do direct care and case management and some managerial positions as well. So I look forward to this conversation with you all, and thank you for taking the time to join us. I also would like my executive management team to take the opportunity to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Sticklin. I'm the Assistant Regional Director. I work in the Individual and Family Support Division, and I'm happy to be here. And I think this is great. The Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner put this together. And like Stacy said, I'm here. I'm available. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. But I want to welcome everyone, and let's get going. Let's roll.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And my name is Amy Blazowski, and I'm the Self-Determination Director in the North Region. Really glad everybody could join us tonight, and hopefully we'll have a really fruitful conversation. Thanks again.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Dusant. I'm the Clinical Director in the North Region. Glad you took the opportunity to join us this evening. Thanks.
Now, good evening. I had to put my microphone on. I'm Cheryl Kemp. I'm the Assistant Regional Director for the Private Administration on a temporary stint back in my old job again. I retired in 2017. I'm happy to see that you've joined us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, North Region, and everyone who came on. I think that's everybody, Stacy, right? Thanks. That's we appreciate you being here. A couple other introductions to make, and some of these people may or may not be on the call, but I'll begin with Dr. Cheryl Ellis, who is a new position important to me. We created an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And Dr. Ellis, if you'd like to pop on and say hi, I think you're in attendance this evening.
Yes. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us. And I look forward to the conversation and information that you are open to sharing, because all voices at the table are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Not present tonight, one of the lessons learned in the pandemic was a need for ongoing emergency management coordination We had done it in an ad hoc fashion and relied on a couple of people to shoulder a lot of the burden and a bunch of other people. But we now have a main person who has years of experience doing this type of work, and his name is Jake Mankey. And we are happy to have him. And the last position I want to make sure you're aware of tonight is, and I don't know if she's logged on, she said she may not be able to make it, but after many years of service, Ed Bruno retired, and we are grateful to have Shannon Giacovino, formerly after a period, formerly of the ARC, a couple years in the middle between the ARC and us, but she, I think, has found her place as an ombuds person for the department and is available to you, and we'll make sure her contact information is also made available to you. So at the beginning, I talked we were going to get into some updates on some of the things regarding the videos, but even if you've seen the videos, since we produced those, there's still some further updates. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Elisa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elisa Velardo. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for DDS, formerly the Regional Director for the North Region, and prior to that, worked in the private nonprofit sector for many years, and it's really good to see everyone here tonight. I wanted to share some information about some things that are happening in the department and some initiatives that are taking place as well. One of the exciting things that's happening is a series of forums that we've been hosting each month. The series is called the Fourth Tuesday Forums on Innovative Services. And it takes place the fourth Tuesday of every month from 3 to 4:30. Each month we look at a different topic that may be of interest to some of you. It started in July, and we've hosted forums on supportive housing, individualized housing support options, and assistive technology. This month, the forum will be on community companion homes, and we have forums in employment and remote supports that are coming up in November and December. We're in the process of putting together the schedule for 2023. So if there are topics that you're particularly interested in that you would like featured in an upcoming forum, please feel free to either mention that tonight or put a note in the chat or reach out to me. And a little bit about the format. This is not just a DDS informational session. While we do have folks from DDS that'll talk a little bit about the service, we have providers that provide the service that will talk about innovations in terms of the service system. We invite colleagues from sister agencies, Department of Housing, Department of the Bureau of Rehab Services, to name a few. But the most important part about these forums is that we have individuals and families that share their lived experience in utilizing these services and how these services and supports have worked for them. And I think that firsthand perspective has been really important, really resonated with people. I also would like to provide a little update in the area of employment. I have had the pleasure of working really closely with the employment and day support team in my current role, and there's a lot of really good work happening in this area. If you haven't had the chance to watch the videos, I would recommend that you do. There's a lot of information on the background in terms of what we've done in the last year or two around employment. But more recently, we continue to work with the State Employment Leadership Network. We're in our third quarter, and we just received third quarter recommendations from the various subcommittees that are working in different areas, and those recommendations are in the process of being reviewed by the Commissioner's Office. We also are convening a subcommittee on transportation. One of the things that came out of our first quarter recommendations was the need to really look at expanding transportation options for people. And so if you have ideas around transportation, innovative ways that transportation might be expanded, and this is a topic you're interested in and you want to be involved in that subcommittee, feel free to reach out. You can contact Julie Bouchard, and we're in the process of scheduling the first committee meeting. Finally, you may have heard about customized employment, and if you haven't, you will hear more about customized employment in the years and the months ahead. Customized employment is a proven process that supports people who want to work but have not yet been successful in obtaining employment. And it's a structured approach with credentialed staff that provide that support. And there's funding available for people who qualify. So if you're interested in learning more about customized employment, you can reach out to your case manager. We have members of our employment and day support team on the call today, and we'd love to have that conversation. And with that, I'll turn it back to the commissioner.
Thanks, Elisa. I just wanted to mention, when you watch those videos, when you listen to us talk about the potential for change, I want people to understand a couple of things, despite rumors that fly about. First is that this does not mean we're looking to eliminate the use of group homes in our service system and in the continuation of services, but try and fill in gaps between some of our existing services and what group homes have traditionally been able to offer to ensure that we're providing people the right support in the right place at the right time. The other thing I want, as you look at these, you'll hear a lot about assistive technology, and the notion here is not to permanently replace staff, but to augment the funding in such a way, in the services in such a way that with your existing staff, you can get even more out of life and do even more to lead your good life. Before we move into questions and answers, I had mentioned that we might have one additional guest join us from our leadership team. The other recent appointment for us in our public sector, with Cress Secaroli moving on to be the South Region Regional Director, is Patricia West, who's been with us for a number of years, but now most recently as Regional Director in Public. Are you available to come on and say hi, Patricia?
I am. Hi, everyone. Sorry that I'm late. I'm sure you're off to a good start. As the commissioner said, I'm the new regional director in public. I've been in state service for about 22 years. And prior to that, I had 10 years of service in the private sector. I'm pleased to be here, proud to be a member of the commissioner's team.
Thank you. It's glad you joined us this evening. So with that, I'm going to open up for questions. There's a couple ways you can ask questions tonight. You can put them right in the chat box. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, at least on my screen, along the bottom of the screen is an icon labeled chat. And you can click on that and type in your comment or question. And to the right of that is a reactions icon. And if you click on that, there should be a raise your hand function. And if neither of those seem to be working for you, you can turn your camera on and wave your hand, and we'll figure out how to help you from there. So the floor and the conversation is yours. It got really, really quiet. That's okay. If you don't have questions or comments, that's okay, but I don't plan on repeating what was in the video. So if there aren't questions, we can just sort of wrap up business and direct you to some of those resources we talked about. I did a training a long time ago about in the fundraising world when I was a private exec, and it talked about something called the abominable silence. And I think it's here.
Usually a little pause and somebody will take the bait and raise their hand.
It's okay. It's okay if they don't. Nothing from staff, nothing. I appreciate families coming out. I hope you weren't expecting something a lot different than questions and answers. I could ask questions, but I don't think that's the way we drew this up.
Commissioner Chef, I'll break the ice. I'll ask a question.
Oh, thank you, David.
You're welcome. Welcome. Good evening. One of my staff, several of my staff have raised the question of telework. And they say they're hearing rumors that after the current period that's approved, I believe through January 3rd, that telework is going to be phased out. And didn't know if we had any updates on the status of telework going forward after the current approval status.
I am unaware of any indication that we would be phasing out telework. So that would be, and I'm in a lot of high level conversations. I haven't heard that.
Okay.
I do believe that there are some agencies that believe their business needs have changed since the last application period and may be looking for more people to be in person more often. But with the arbitrator ruling that led to the 80-20 rule that we tend to live with at DDS for the most part, we certainly have a number of positions that need to be in person. I don't expect it to go away anytime soon. In labor-friendly New England and in labor-friendly Connecticut, I can't imagine someone overruling that arbitrator's decision. And I can't quite honestly imagine Dan Livingston or CBAC sitting still for it. So my suggestion is that there'll be a new application process. At some state agencies, there may be a closer look at what that telework means. I don't think many of the positions at DDS have changed significantly, and the business needs have changed significantly since July 1st. So I don't anticipate a lot of change around that for DDS anyway.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. And if they should be asking if they're bargaining unit members, they should be asking their union leadership if that's on the table. But I haven't been told that, but I'm not in CBAC negotiations ever. That's between OLR and the agencies. So, but I usually get some inkling if there's going to be that would be a big shift for us. We'd have to pull off in what, 7 weeks, 10 weeks rather. I just don't see that happening.
All right, thank you again. I appreciate it.
You got it. Good to see you.
Commissioner, first up for raised hands, we have Pat Tyler, followed by Karen Sticklin.
Oh, Pat, I knew you'd save me here tonight. Where are you?
I'm just not going to grace you with me driving the car, so just get to look at my still picture here. I was well, thank you for doing these talks. I didn't get a chance to say that the other day. I guess what I've been thinking about, Pat Tyler Unplugged, and wondering what your thoughts on this would be. I really, I applaud the whole concept of what the ARPA efforts are supposed to be.
So I think you're fading.
At the same time, I sometimes feel that the department's going to take. I'm fading out.
You were, and then you came back. So why don't you go ahead and finish? Sometimes you feel like the department.
I'll try not to move. Yeah. What I was going to say is, I wonder if there could be a more informal way to get input from people who are kind of at the receiving end of services before plans get made. So for example, the whole ARPA thing and the way it's happening, it's fine. It would be nice to feel like when these opportunities come, that we sort of harvest some of the ideas of people before the direction kind of gets set. And I'm wondering if that's a possibility.
So let me answer that in a couple of ways, Pat, and thank you for the question.
You're following what I'm saying.
I think I'm following what you're saying. So in the particular
other than just being on a committee, okay.
I was just waiting. So in the particular
Yeah, lose you again?
No, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Yes.
Technology. The ARPA funding came about, and we had a very, very short amount of time during the middle of an upswing of COVID outbreaks, and and the Medicaid state agency, which is DSS, led the charge on that, and we really didn't have a lot of time for stakeholder engagement, including providers, family, staff throughout the organization. with the specific funding initiatives. What we did try to do was go back and from the listening that we did last fall with the regional breakout sessions, try and incorporate a lot of what we heard from those that contributed to the 5-year plan as well into some of those initiatives. And at the same time, sort of look at those through a lens that the feds were giving us to consider transformative change. I do think that communication is one of the areas, and I think in a very broad sense, and also in a more specific sense, communication with the department is one of the things you're asking about. And we are looking to improve on communication, not just about the ARPA things, but communication in general. And considering things like surveys, trying to do more of these sort of talkback sessions. And even though some of the conversations this year weren't as robust as last year, we're hoping that we'll continue some sort of cadence of these meetings more often than annually, and hopefully the pandemic will stay out of the way. There is a parent and individual supported committee within the ARPA. And while those videos are posted, the videos of the meetings are posted, and you can go back and watch them and submit feedback based on them or any of the other committee meetings. But I think I hear what you're saying, and beyond email, that we're trying to modernize the way we send information electronically, looking for other ways to capture feedback from individuals and those individuals we support and their families. Do you have any specific thoughts on what that might look like, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm thinking like when a service is gonna, let me see if I can give an example. Like, even if you're under a time crunch and you've got to comply with some kind of federal constraints that it's being provided, even if there was like a short window where you could say, hey, we're looking into this kind of funding, this is what we're thinking, any thoughts from families or individuals receiving services? And there could be a way where you could at least integrate some of that thinking in the formation of an idea. And I believe you, and I'm sure you did the best you could with the time constraint, but I'm just looking for a more smooth way for families to be able to give feedback. So for an example, I'm on a committee in the ARPA committee, in one of these committees, and the goal and objective of the committee was made before I arrived. So it feels a little bit like it's already predetermined what it's trying to accomplish, right? It would have been nice if there had been some period of time where there was some flexibility in the thinking about what the goals and objectives were going to be, where people could have had some input to shape that. But now I feel like I'm just on a train that may or may not go somewhere I think is very useful. I mean, I'm going to do my best with it, but I'm just thinking, I think it would be more productive to kind of get that input before something gets established, because, you know, there was a very lengthy presentation by Peter Mason about kind of the rules of participating in this stuff. And I didn't get the impression from his presentation that this was the kind of thing where you were going to go in there and like swing the agenda into a different direction. So,
I appreciate that. And some of his decision to talk about it that way comes from me. We have a bad habit at DDS of talking things to death and not finishing doing things. We have a penalty with ARPA that if we don't spend it before a particular time, then we lose it. So there is a much tighter constraint on talking, and we spent probably 10 years engaging with providers and then later families around a rate transition before we actually ever did anything, because we invited and I think that I think that we provide more opportunity for stakeholder input than a lot of other agencies. And this was just a situation where we couldn't quite do that and abide by a timeline, because a lot of these things require funding proposals, and there are windows that those can go out and all the rest of that. So our director of communication is on. And that's Kevin Bronson, and I'm certain he's taking note of what you're saying, and we know how to get a hold of you. So when we talk more about, because part of our strategic plan was to improve family communications, we'll certainly reach out to you, Pat, and anybody else who's interested to see how we can make that process better.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I saw a quick question in the box about in the chat box about Shannon Giacovino. The ombudsperson traditionally, in the way that Ed had played it, handled mostly problem resolution, and was this is not a criticism of Ed by any means. It was more reactive to inquiries. I think while Shannon fields a lot of those calls in her role as ombudsperson, I think she's also in a position, given her history of listening and relationship with families, to do some more proactive work, and is engaged a little differently than perhaps Ed was, serving in a variety of committees, doing outreach to other ombuds people, advocacy groups. But she likes to talk about her job. She seems to be pretty terrific at it. So I think the suggestion was, if you'd like to learn more specifically, that she does have a web page and is very responsive to any inquiries. She can help with navigating the system, navigating the website, helping you find solutions to benefit issues, not by solving them herself, but she'll know who to call. So any number of things where you seem to have hit a dead end, or you're frustrated with something, and for goodness sakes, if something's gone really right and you want to celebrate, she'd also love to hear that. So that's what that role's about, and I hope that helps answer the question. And then, Joe, was there additional questions in the chat box?
Yep, there was one question from Michael Strauss. It was asking, any changes to housing placements for persons on the list based on ARPA or other changes?
So that is my hope. My hope in engaging in some of these very big attempts at systems transformation in a short period of time would be that, and I'll try and explain the perspective I'm coming from, but that will allow us to free up, without any additional resources from the legislature, allow us to free up resources internally that we can meet the needs of more people within the system. How might that happen? Like, it sounds great, but how does that happen? So I have talked publicly, both the state side and the provider side, for almost 20 years now in the state of Connecticut, that we might consider some of the people getting current supports, consider supporting them differently. In the early days, this was for me about utilizing group homes differently than we have, and about utilizing clustered supported living. And that's what I think some of this transformative opportunity might be. But it's different now than it was the last 19 years or last 17 years I talked about. We're looking to incentivize providers for engaging in that work. There's been no real incentive to try and do that, but we're actually looking at cash incentives that might help us transform that. We're looking at, and we raised the caps on assistive technology in the recent waiver modification. We think that with the higher caps, people can utilize even more technology, which frees up the staff resources, which frees up the dollars, which frees up our ability to address the needs of people on waiting lists or emergency lists. And in the midst of that, we're also looking at what we have called I-housing, and still may be referenced in the statute as I-housing, but we call it mixed use affordable housing because the actual funds associated with I- ran out. But we have a number of developments going on around the state. And in those developments, no more than 25% of the entire development can be people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's what makes it mixed. Other targeted populations, marginalized populations looking for stable, affordable housing can benefit from it as well. And the costs of supporting individuals in those settings, which affords a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week presence without there actually being one in each apartment, really reduces the average costs for people moving into those. And what that savings in money isn't to give back to the legislature or to give back to the governor's office, we give back to OPM. The intent is, within our current appropriation, we can repurpose those dollars to address the needs of people on the wait list. Kind of a long-winded answer, but I think that's what our intent is, and I hope that was responsive to your question. If not, drop another question in the box or raise your hand and we'll figure it out.
Commissioner, for now, that concludes the questions and comments in the chat box as well as hands raised. We have Karen Sticklin. I apologize, Karen.
Right, and I don't want to take up everybody's time. I just want to springboard a little bit off of what Jordan is talking about with assistive technology. Again, I'm Karen Sticklin. I am the Assistant Regional Director for the division with Individual and Family Support. And, you know, assistive technology, we're in a different world, as we all know. And I don't want people to think that we are trying to replace staff. As Jordan mentioned, it's really to enhance people's lives. Part of my role is working, I manage the respite centers in the North region, and we are now bringing in a lot of assistive technology for families to actually see, for families to actually touch, for families to take home and try to work with things. So we're really trying to, the other thing that we're trying to do is all of my staff just about is on board with additional training for assistive technology. Even in interviews, we are now bringing that into our interview process of what experience people have. And in the North region, we are very, very fortunate that we have Amy Blazowski. I don't mean to throw her under the bus, but you know, she really is a forerunner, a forefront thinker. She helps us when things are coming through Pratt. If there's different, and Pratt is our planning and allocation process that we have in the regions. But she really looks at things differently when requests come in and try to figure out, have families thought about this? Have we thought about an assessment just to see whether, you know, we could do things a little differently? And as Jordan said, it's not to replace staff. It really is to free up some funding so that there's more to go for more families and it's not limited. But anyway, I just wanted to shout that out. But
thank you, Karen.
Commissioner, we have a hand raised from Michelle. Michelle, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, Commissioner Schaaf. This is Michelle Brady. I'm a case manager out in the West region.
Hi, Michelle.
And I'm sorry. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. First of all, I just want to thank you for your Friday emails. It's been very appreciated, not just by me, but also I know by other case managers and people that so thank you for doing that. And I'm sorry I couldn't attend the West region summer webinar that you were hosting. That time was not convenient with my schedule, but tonight's was. Question about that Fourth Tuesday thing. How are people finding out about that? And I apologize if that was an email I happened to overlook.
Elisa, do you want to, or Kevin, do you want to talk about those events and how we're notifying everyone?
I can talk from my perspective, and Kevin, you can add to it. We have information on the website. I'm glad you asked about that because I did not mention that in my opening remarks. If you go to the homepage of the DDS website and look under those frequently used links, you'll see Fourth Tuesday forums, and you'll see recordings of the forums that have happened, and you will see the upcoming forums as well as a link. We've sent information out to families through the ARC and through our Unbuds person. A communication was supposed to go out to all DDS staff. It probably would have been a couple months ago. But if you are finding that this is new information to you and it would be helpful to reiterate that these forums are available, we certainly can do that. And then the notice went out through Everbridge to all providers.
And to piggyback, and Michelle, it's Kevin Bronson, the communications director. To piggyback kind of on what Elisa said, we shared them out on social media, the flyers, but to your point, it might be a good idea to reshare them in the Commissioner's Friday message, because it is something that I've heard most people enjoy as well. They find informative.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm pretty good about reading emails. So I think just sending another one out to even internally to the DDS staff would be great. And for families, ironically, I was on a couple calls this morning with Dr. Ellis, and they were really great. And just reaching out to families and stuff, a lot of that is difficult too, because families, some of them don't always get emails or like to read emails. So I personally find it best when I'm communicating with families, when I go out for that individual planning meeting, to say, hey, check out our website. These are, you know, all resources that we have available to you, and platforms for you to be heard. So maybe coming up with something that can go on that one-page notification sheet or something, so people know they can go there just other than when they have a complaint about something, would be helpful.
Yeah, and one of the things that I don't mean to call it the commissioner, but one of the things that he mentioned, but I don't think he mentioned at this time, is what we're working on is he did mention communication was a big issue that came up in the other forums. But what we're working on right now is getting an email sign up list on our website, because that's the biggest issue, right? Is that we have near zero emails from people to communicate. We have everyone with state emails, but it's hard to get to families and individuals. So we typically go through the case managers, or like Elisa said, the ARC or other resources like that. So we're trying to work on a single source communication piece where we could send the same information out to everyone.
Thanks. And Michelle, just so non-staff on the call tonight know, during the initial days of the pandemic, I started emailing directly to all staff within the agency, and after as we were shutting things down, and that communication was pretty frequent to start, and I've sort of settled into a weekly cadence, sometimes about COVID, sometimes about nothing, but just trying to keep contact with staff. And I appreciate the feedback, Michelle. I'm still surprised. I get random replies that strike from whatever I've said that strike people a certain way, positively, negatively, whatever it may be. But it's allowed me to have these ongoing conversations with our staff throughout the state who want to engage with me directly, and it's been a pleasure. Plus, I've got to share a lot of my favorite music tunes with them.
It's given us an excuse to look at YouTube videos, so thank you.
No one from IT is on to yell at me, so that's okay. Anything else from folks tonight? So with that, the conversation doesn't end, because the webinar, the Zoom meeting will end. You know how to get a hold of us. You have questions afterwards, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. We're pretty responsive to emails and communication. There's one thing I've really continue to support our leadership and all staff around the state with being responsive, even when we don't have the answer you want, to still respond so that you know we're listening, and what doesn't work. So feel free to reach out afterwards. I think when I talked with Kevin earlier, we may have some additional information about ARPA and other things we talked about tonight that will hopefully increase our communication, and where we've made promises to follow up or to include you in future endeavors, like we did, Pat, with the communication work. We promise to do so. If you're poking around and you see places where there's conversations going on and you feel like you have something you'd like to contribute, let us know. We don't have all the answers, that's for sure. And so we try, the more brain power we have involved, the better off we'll all be. And with that, I wish you a lovely evening. It's beautiful out, and I look forward to talking to you soon.